In just a mere 28 seconds, we'll be live on the radio, so stand by. Anyway, you're listening to Stages of Life Radio on the social media platforms of everything. Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube.
What about Flitch?
That's
we
different.
haven't started that yet.
No, we're not going to be on that yet. You're so weird.
We're going to be on Itch, too.
I'm going to beat you with a stick in a minute.
Here.
Can't make it split.
It's time for Stages of Life Radio with Dr. David Klein. Have a medical question? Call 407-422-1212. That's 407-422-1212 or text 23680.
Yeah, buddy. Is it that time? Oh, that's my face. Okay, just want to make sure the mic's working. Hey guys, how are you? Stages of Life Radio is now live on News Radio WFLA Orlando and across the entire social media platforms, so you can not only see us and hear us, but you can actually ask questions. I mean, it's crazy, like it is. 407-422-1212. Today, Dr. Klein has decided to address COVID-19 long haulers.
Yeah.
Does that mean what to expect, what it means, etc., etc.?
No, you have to...
Or are they just tripping across the country with COVID? I mean, is that what...
It's kind of an
long
interesting...
hauler?
Yes, it's a very interesting phrase, these long haulers.
It is.
You know, when there's a shortage of truckers, it should bring everybody a certain amount of comfort to know that, that all of these people that are now complaining of these multiple whatevers are called long haulers as opposed to the short route guys.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is a COVID long hauler? Okay, is there such a thing, really? Is there such a thing as a COVID long hauler? And it's rather ill-defined. It's one of these sorts of things that you hear about after people have been hospitalized or after people have gotten sick, and then they have persistent problems for months afterwards.
See, I found it to be an excuse.
It may well be in
A
many
reason,
cases.
when they use it like, oh, it's your choice, get the vaccine or don't, but don't forget about the long haulers.
Well, it gets interesting. But how many people end up with similar symptoms after, let's say, influenza or any other viral illness or any other problem for that matter? So how long does it take to recover from pneumonia? Does anybody out there know?
I don't know, because I had
takes about a
walking
year.
pneumonia for almost a year and a half, and it kept getting, it kept popping back.
It can take upwards of a year for things to clear if you don't do anything or if you just let nature run its course. So there are many, many illnesses that can be triggered or revealed by illnesses like COVID. And so that's really what this is all about. The types of complaints that people have are far too varied for it to really and truly be one syndrome. It's just unlikely. So what are the sorts of things that can develop? Cardiac. Well, we understand how that works. You can have COVID and develop cardiac issues that never resolve. That doesn't necessarily make a chronic condition out of it. It simply means that you have a sequelum, let's just say a bad result after having had the virus. Brain and peripheral nervous systems. We're finding people with toxic polyneuropathies as a result of COVID or following COVID. We're finding individuals that have had stroke, which is a very different problem as it is. So vasculitis. Now, the one I'm going to focus on the most today actually is going to be kidney function, because this is something that I'm really starting to pick up a good bit of it in individuals that were either very, very sick, and some people only became mildly ill. More so is I'm not entirely unconvinced that just being exposed to a small amount of this stuff doesn't cause some bounce in the kidneys. Adrenal dysfunction, thyroid dysfunction. You can look at somebody cross-eyed and end up becoming hypothyroid. You can become pregnant and end up being hypothyroid. You can have a bit of trauma and the thyroid becomes unmasked. Fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, depression. Those are the sorts of things that seem to follow just about everything. And then last but not least, we're going to talk about sleep disorders if we have enough time. And the reason why I mention that one is that it may well be the place to start when you're treating individuals, because it's not enough to tell somebody, well, I think you're a long hauler. Oh, good. Okay. One, there's no blood test that'll tell you that you're a long hauler. Secondly, there's no single test or group of tests that'll say you're a long hauler. And it just simply becomes one of those kinds of fibromyalgia disorders which people kind of roll their eyes when you tell them that they have it, in particular the doctors. So why do some people develop these conditions? And that's the question. Why is it? And who is it? And how do we know what's going on? And it's almost always somebody that has a pre-existing issue that tends to get scrambled. So again, what are those pre-existing conditions? Hypothyroidism seems to be number one. Number two seems to be hypoadrenalism. That means that your adrenal glands aren't working exactly correctly. People that have autoimmune disorders, it has a tendency to stir that up also. Why? Because what kills you with COVID, what makes you sick with COVID, is an inflammatory reaction called a cytokine storm, which, by the way, is the same thing that makes people die with these other autoimmune disorders when they flare. So if you're going to have, let's say, a rheumatoid lung disease, okay, and I say, well, what do you mean rheumatoid lung disease? That's a disease of joints. No, it hits the lungs too. It hits the connective tissue. It hits every cell tissue in your body. Rheumatoid arthritis. So the medicines that we use to treat these cytokine issues tend to be the same, which is the reason why things like hydroxychloroquine, commonly known as Plaquenil, are so beneficial. We've been using it to treat rheumatoid arthritis, Sjogren's syndrome, lupus, these sorts of things for decades. It works beautifully. So what can be done? Well, the first thing you need to do is to figure out what the diagnosis might be. You got sick. You were in the hospital. You got sick. You stayed at home. You got sick. You don't even know that you got sick. And then all of a sudden, things start to go sideways. So what do? So the blood work that you do for this evaluation is rather broad, rather substantial, and it takes a little bit of know-how to do this because you have to look at essentially every organ system in the body, and it's best done all at once. Why? Okay, because just as it is when you're making a piece of art, you're producing something. You don't make a corner and then call in another individual to do the center and a fourth individual to do one other corner and go around the block. You have to get a look at the whole picture all at one time. So then, once you've got a general idea what may be broken, what may be impaired, or what might be, let's just say, underperforming, which is even more likely the case, then you start looking for a response to therapy to tease it apart. So if you had one of those little gold necklaces that women wear so commonly, very, very thin little gold necklaces, they're great for kids and teenagers.
Nice Italian chain.
Yeah, oh yeah, you can buy them at the mall by the foot. Okay, they mark up
Not
the
the
heck out of
plated
those things.
gold ones.
Oh, it doesn't
No,
even
those-
matter. They're going to get lost anyway or broken. It doesn't make any difference. Okay, but those things are very, very thin. And what's cool about them, okay, so the first time they're thrown into a drawer is the last time they can be worn because they end up in knots. So in order to untie this knot, you have to be very, very patient, not pull too hard, and tease it apart with a pin. And that's exactly what you do with your medications and your diagnostics to figure out what's going on. The metaphor is perfect. So you're looking at an individual. They want to know right now what's going on, and you have to settle them down and say, listen, this is going to take a little bit of effort, a whole lot of patience, okay, and we're going to pick it apart. In some ways, it's like stripping paint off an old piece of furniture.
Okay.
All right, so what are the therapeutic options? So, most common things. And I'm seeing a lot of people come in with these long hauler complaints. I'm a long hauler. So, I'm just waiting for those individuals that you can figure it out, but they don't want to give up the the support group issue, which is the next thing. Don't join. Oh, if you have this problem, do not join a support group. Okay?
Okay.
I've been in this business I've been in private practice for 42 years.
Perpetuating
What
the
I will
issue.
tell you, okay, is that when you join a support group, you are screwed. You are going to never get any better for several reasons. One, you're going to be listening to a bunch of people who have a vested interest in remaining sick. Mm-hmm. And then you will develop, knowingly or unknowingly, a vested interest in staying sick so you can remain a part of this group.
Psychosomatic,
What
my
do
friend.
you do if you've got somebody that's got chronic nausea syndrome, okay, and you find out they have migraine?
Disassociate.
Okay? They
That's what
just
I-
lost their entire support group. Yeah. So guess what? Well, I'm going to say that I have migraine, but I also have chronic nausea, therefore I can stay in that group. And therein lies a problem. So I don't really care too much for them. My first really run-in with these things was 40 years ago with a fibromyalgia group. Oh, yeah. There are ways to treat that. Well, I got thrown out of the place because I was saying, hey, the first thing you guys need to do is to check your thyroid. No, we yell have fibromyalgia. It's a disabling illness. It's not the fact that I can't. Yeah, I couldn't believe it.
What about chronic fatigue syndrome?
Same thing.
Suckers.
So we're going to get into some therapeutic options.
Goodness gracious.
After
these wonderful messages from our sponsors. This is Stages of Life Radio every Sunday afternoon, God willing, between 4 and 5 p.m. Live on the radio. So, yeah, we fly without a net sometimes. Just going to put it out there. All right, every time. Anyway, we're going to open the phone lines. The text lines are already open at 23680. Ask your question and giving us enough information to work with, please.
There we go.
I know, really. All right, hey guys. Hello, everybody on the internet who's watching us on the interwebs. Good to have you along. All the Florida teams have played. Jacksonville won finally. So
really?
There's that. Yeah, they
What high
beat
school
Miami.
they
No, they beat Miami.
Oh, okay.
Miami is now 1-4, and the Jags are now 1-4. No, 1-3.
So it's the race to the bottom. You gotta love it. Yeah, okay, well, not every year is going to be a perfect year.
No, and of course the Bucs won on Thursday night, so there should be no reason why people are not paying attention right now. I'm just going to put it out there. So, anyways, I gotta do some math. Hold still, will you?
Some math.
I gotta do math.
Okay, I think we're going to have you subtract back from 60 by 7s.
I can do that.
I bet you could.
But counting forward sometimes not so easy. But yeah, the backwards, when you tell people to do that, the amnesias, say count backwards from 100 by 7s. They're like 93. That's as far as they get.
When I used to knock people out, okay, and I'd start getting things ready to go, and I'd go ahead and squirt a little bit of the pre-med in, and I'd squirt a little bit of this or squirt a little bit through the IV, and then I'd say, okay, fine. It's customary. It's customary for us to ask you to count back from 100 by 3s or 4s. I said, but for you, what's the cube root of 28? Then their eyes get real big and they roll back, and that's the end of it.
Yep.
And so, there are many ways to play the game.
Hi, Rob.
Many ways to play the game.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I was going to say, I was always just more worried about, are they going to operate on the right part of me?
They tried operating on the wrong foot with me.
I know. They tried to operate on the wrong shoulder with me. I literally, before I'm going under, I'm writing with a Sharpie, not this arm. Because all the way through the charting, they had it messed up.
No, exactly. So they had, they were going to operate on the wrong foot. Now, they did a marvelous job understanding that they almost did a marvelous job on the wrong foot.
But,
and so it took my lovely wife, because I was really, they flipped something through the IV, and I was just happy camper. I couldn't have cared if they operated on any part of my body.
In here, give them the goods.
So Tess said to the nurse, because she was arguing with her, no, that can't be the right one. So the paper says, she goes, look, my husband here is a malpractice attorney, so you really better get this one right. So she stopped. They stopped everything at that point, okay, and then called for the surgeon. So the surgeon came in, and a likable guy, very, very nice fellow. And so he asked me, so he goes, well, but it says here we're doing the right foot. And I said, yeah. I said, is that if that's going to help prevent the problem? I said, unfortunately, my pain is in the left foot. So he called his office, got the x-rays, and there it was.
Yeah.
So,
by the way, Facebook and other platforms, we are a radio station. We pay licensing fees, so please don't silence portions of our show just because you think you should.
Or find some other reason to silence us.
Right. Well, find something, but not that.
Yeah.
I mean, that we covered.
I've been silenced before.
That's paid for. I mean, that's almost silly doing that, because then I have to go and pay for the...
He said mean things about Mr. Biden.
3 years later, they release it, so... Welcome back. I know, right? Stages of Life Radio. You're missing a lot of the show that goes on during the commercial break. It's nothing new.
Yeah.
During the commercial breaks, we're actually broadcasting live on social media, Facebook and such. You can find us by just searching Stages of Life Medical Institute. And that way, during the commercial breaks, we take questions and we chit-chat a little off-air stuff. And sometimes we say, let's go, Brandon. And it happens. Anyway, Dr. Klein, yes?
Yeah, well, I want to thank the reporters and thank the studio audience for showing up.
Hey, we have a couple of people here.
Melissa here's got a really big monitor for me to read off of.
Yeah, no, you don't actually have to read off the monitor. Do you know that those 7 minutes and no Q&A is just to prop him up so that people know he's still alive?
Well, he's still, as long as he can shuffle in and shuffle out, we know that he's still shuffling.
No questions, please. Come on, man. Okay, so we're talking about COVID and the presumption of the long haulers.
Yeah.
Now, there's always a residual when you have to kind of get your body recuperated from anything, even the cold.
It takes
Splinter.
This will take a little something out of you. So what is it that the COVID virus does that is so wicked? Well, it's no different than the other 50 or so COVID viruses that have plagued us for the last 100,000 years or more. So coronavirus is there. This little variant that kind of tweaked us, just happens to be a deadlier one than most of them. There are two others that are also deadly. SARS, okay, so, as well as MERS, Middle East Respiratory Syndrome. So the difference between COVID-19 and those two COVID variants is this one is much more contagious as well as being deadly. So the question then is whatever happened to SARS-1 and whatever happened to MERS? We don't see it anymore now, do we? So eventually, and there's no reason not to believe that this is the case, the same thing is going to burn out with COVID-19. Question? How long will that take? How long will it take? So I would call the bookies in Las Vegas to find out what the line is on this one. But it's probably a couple years in total. Yeah, we're already a year and a half into it, maybe another year, and then we should be done with it.
Okay.
And then it's not a matter of herd immunity. It's a simple matter of the virus mutating. So what are our therapeutic options with COVID long haulers? Because I get these folks. They come in the office. They've seen a bajillion different doctors. They've been told all kinds of different things. If they're not screwed up too badly, it's actually not that hard to deal with. You know, the real problem occurs when they're given steroids. So, well, we're going to give you steroids. That makes everybody happier. It makes them all better, but it really doesn't. It's one of the worst things any doctor can do for any particular patient. For most things that's used for. It's one of the most overused, appreciated ways of causing damage. So the first thing that you need to look at is thyroid replacement. And the answer to this is when indicated. Indicated to whom? Not to you, but to whomever's looking at and interpreting the data, the blood work. But it's not even just a matter of, well, your TSH and your total T4, therefore, boom. Because that's what most people get. You have to look at the TPA, ATG, as well as looking at T uptake. So once you've got all this happiness in front of you, then you go low tech. You look at the cholesterol level, which, if high, suggests that the thyroid's being it's underactive. Why would I say that? Because it goes back about 50 years. Before we had TSH, T4 determinations, we had cholesterol. And that was the way we determined whether or not people were hypothyroid. And the other way is with temperature. So if temperature's low, cholesterol's elevated or abnormally high, it doesn't have to be real high, then it's a good indicator, good suggestion that you have hypothyroidism, whether it's of production, destruction, or functional. It's going to be there. Adrenal supplementation. But you never do this. You do not do this. That means steroids, unless you measure first ACTH and cortisol as well as DHEA. Why would you do that? Pregnenolone if the person's a little bit older, because once you give them steroids, all of those values go to hell in a handbasket, and you can no longer adequately or completely diagnose them. You have, in the military, we used to call that screwing the pooch. It's done.
FUBAR.
Yeah, it's all over Irene. So. Sleep facilitation. Now, most of the folks that end up with COVID-related issues, if asked, are you sleeping okay? Well, they're tired. I'm tired all the time. Okay, that's clue number one. If you're tired all the time, man, you didn't get any sleep.
And you're not sleeping okay.
No. And then, so what do you do? I mean, what type of blood work can you do to determine whether somebody's getting enough sleep, right? You don't think you can, huh?
Oh, sure you can.
Growth hormone, human growth hormone level will tell you how many REM sleeps cycles people get. So if you see an inappropriately low HGH, then you can rest assured that your patient is not resting at all. All right. And so what do? You start treating the sleep disorder that's right there, and they'll start feeling better immediately. First night or two after sleeping well, people start to get better. It's remarkable how this happens. But you have to be careful what you take for sleep. And this is the joke, because when you don't sleep well, you become depressed. Most of the soporifics, the sleep medications, are depressants. They make you depressed.
Yes.
Go figure that one out. So it doesn't really do well unless you pick your soporific, pick your sleep medication so that it's not a depressant. And then the last piece of this is kidney. Why do we care about the kidney? All right. If you don't look at eGFR, that's the estimated glomerular filtration rate. That's a mouthful, but it's a way important one. it starts to drop. Okay, you start losing renal function 1% per year as we get older. That's just the way it goes. But it doesn't happen linearly. It happens every time you've had an infection. It happens every time you pass a kidney stone, every time somebody slugs you in the back, or you get antibiotics of a certain type, chemotherapy. There are a lot of ways that we can, as a medical community, destroy your kidneys, but the virus does a beautiful job on it. So you'll end up with these vasculitis issues. It's an inflammation of the blood vessels, and wouldn't you know, the kidneys are sort of integrally related to those vascular systems. So when you end up with vasculitis, you'll end up with decreased kidney function. So you can improve it very quickly. It takes a matter of 2 to 3 weeks using a combination of folic acid, taurine, and a couple other vasodilators if you need them. I prefer to go with it with the folic acid and taurine first because it's cheap. Then if I have to add vancomycin and huperzine in, which works beautifully, then I'll go ahead and do it, but it kind of doubles the price. So I'm very price sensitive to the patients that are, in fact, having a hard time making ends meet anyway. So you need to watch the kidney function, watch the blood pressure as well, because it'll do all kinds of wonky things, but be careful with regards to what you choose to treat the blood pressure, because this happens. I have people coming in, their blood pressure starts to go sideways, and what's the first thing that the family docs will do, or the cardiologist, every bit as bad, is they'll give a blood pressure medication that has an adverse pressure effect on the kidneys. So then the EGFR drops. They can't figure out why. They call in the nephrologist. The nephrologist looks at it and goes, well, your kidneys still have enough function left that I don't have to put you on dialysis, so go away. They don't come up with any really good ideas as how to fix things or prevent them. Yeah. So anti-inflammatories are necessary. They also cause kidney damage if poorly thought through. So there are many, many, many different anti-inflammatories that have no kidney drag, no renal drag, that is, and then we have to pay attention to this one. So if you have a piece of paper and you know somebody that's had a stroke or that is just acting weird post-COVID, they often benefit from something called DHA, which is docosahexaenoic acid, which is one of those omega-3s the brain just sucks up like a sponge. That's what the brain's looking for to mend, to repair. You find it in large amounts in certain fish oils. I have my patients get DHA straight because I can actually regulate a little bit better. B12, there are a bunch of other micronutrients, but that pretty well is the introduction to what I wanted to discuss. It doesn't get any easier after that. So if you say, well, you said a lot of stuff, man, I did, okay, but it does get a little bit complicated. Do you want to waste a ton of time in getting your life back in order? The answer is no. When you waste time with kidney function, you have a much harder time bouncing it back. And I have people that are very near and dear to me who ended up with a drop in EGFR from the 90s down into the 60s. If you're a medical type, you'd go, well, gee, the 60s is not too bad. Yeah, it is. It's just on the verge of stage 3 kidney disease. Okay, 90 is what you want. Mine's 108, and I'm 67 years old. All right, why?
It's not bragging or
No,
anything.
but it's what it is. But I've got patients that come in the 50s and 40s, and it just dropped like a rock. So you can, in fact, bring it back. But you have to understand that time is of the essence. This is not something you want to mess around with.
Makes sense. So the long of the short is that everybody's going to have some residual symptoms and effects from anything that you get, but the COVID,
COVID leaves a mark. It tends to cause profound fatigue. That fatigue lasts about 2 to 3 months very commonly, and then it melts away. The taste issue, gee, I can't smell or taste anything's right. That may never come back.
Yeah.
But most commonly, it comes back after 3 to 6 months.
Now, I lost that when I had pneumonia, walking pneumonia. I lost my taste. Everything tasted absolutely ridiculously off.
Yeah.
For
COVID,
months.
It nails certain elements within the olfactory lobe. It's really kind of an interesting problem.
We got some people that are chiming in on the social media. We'll take that during our commercial breaks.
I call it the anti-social media because, what do you know?
Psychos.
There you go.
Antisocial. Anyway, we're going to take a quick break. 23680 is the text line. We got a couple things already lining up there. So if you want to check in, or you can talk to Linda and then us by calling 407-422-1212. Be nice now. She has to screen the call so we don't just come in here all, flying by the seat of your pants.
There you go.
We'll be right back. Stages of Life Radio. I'm like, I don't know, tell us something. So yeah, they get mad. They do. They get mad at me sometimes when I'm I call screen for a living for
Yeah,
morning
how long have you been
show,
doing this?
Right, for a really long time. I've been doing radio, and I've always, whenever I've answered the phones with a caller, tried to prep them so that they sound smart. And they don't get,
Pronounce the words
right.
properly.
I tried with this one guy about, he's like, I'm going to talk about Andy Fauci. And I'm like, it's Anthony. Okay, Anthony. All right, gets on the air and says, I want to talk about Andy Fauci. I'm like, yeah, I tried so that you wouldn't look stupid.
Well, yeah. I don't know. I went to, I guess, Books A Million, and there was his, his children's book on why I'm the America's doctor. And I'm thinking, why are you some kind of narcissist? You know what I mean?
A boy who grew up to be America's doctor.
America's doctor. Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah. They took the comments off of the Rotten Tomatoes for this Fauci movie that was out there.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They wouldn't even let. Tony Fonte is on. He says, very informative show. Thanks, Doc. We had a hard bounce back after the infection. Appreciate you.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you.
Yeah.
It really is interesting. So, I mean, I got sicker than stink when I had COVID. Knocked me down pretty well. I had to go back to work after 2 weeks because guess what? There's only one of me out there.
We out of work.
And it was tough. You go in there, you better smile, make sure everybody else is happy and doing what they're doing. But I couldn't hardly walk down the hall. And it took several months before that sense of congestive heart failure went away.
Yeah, that's weird, right?
Because that's really what it is. You end up with a little bit of myocarditis and but it takes care of itself.
Right.
But you can pick this stuff up in the blood work, and you have to. And by doing so, if it's done properly, done accurately, it gives you information, very precise information as to what you have to do to get it under control. So what do you do? If your homocysteine level is not elevated, but your CRP is, that takes you in one nutraceutical direction. And it doesn't say steroid attached to it. It takes you off in one direction. Or let's say that your IL-6 is very, very high, but your CRP is normal. It takes you off in another direction. And you can, in fact, fix these things. But if you don't know what the error code is, even in your car, you take it in and they plug it into a computer.
There we go. Daughter's taste went away after a month after infection. Still gone. Let's save that one for the air.
Yeah,
and,
there we go.
Elizabeth, what are your thoughts about mixing manufacturer boosters? We can address both
so you're
going to
have to with the J&J.
At this point, you're going to have to because the J&J is not available.
It wasn't any good the first time around. Why
would
you want to do it again?
It was just for people who were maybe not going to bother and get the second shot.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
I don't want to get 2 shots. What are you getting now?
Get the
second
J&J
shot.
Yeah, or third. Yeah. Welcome back, Stages of Life Radio, Sunday afternoons 4 to 5, and on Podcast Heaven and the iHeartRadio app, as well as on stagesoflifemedicalinstitute.com. You can go there. It's like a splash page. Land there. You can hit the vitamin shop from there. You can become a new patient. You are already a patient. You can use the patient portal. It's just crazy. Stop by often. Stagesoflifemedicalinstitute.com. Dr. David Klein is here talking right now about COVID long haulers, which is really misleading in my book, and I've been I bite my tongue sometimes when people use that as
You don't bite your tongue often.
No, but I have to in some I do in some job
in the
situations.
morning.
In the morning.
The morning show.
Because sometimes I get it, but a lot of this information is misinformation, definitely doled out to scare the populace.
Yeah.
And this threat of long haulers, I get it. The residual symptoms remain when you have something like COVID or anything that gets you. I told you I had walking pneumonia on and off for almost 18 months, and then it took another year before I actually was recuperated properly.
Yeah.
It took that long of a bounce back.
Yeah, I had pneumonia when I was about 6 years old. Okay, and it took 15 years.
Yeah, because you were in a
15
very
years
formative place there.
before I could actually so much as to run. I couldn't run at all.
Yeah.
The slowest kid in the class because I couldn't breathe very well. So there are all kinds of diseases that have these sequelae to follow, and you can push your way through them if you're strong, if you persist, and sometimes it'll get you. What do you want to do?
Right.
Do you want the disease?
Now, with regards to COVID, that one of our radio guys, Russ Rollins, he got it. He was vaccinated, but he was on the tail end of the second shot, and he got it, and he got pretty bad. Went in the hospital for 5 days. Came out, lost a good amount of weight. I'm going to say this is not the dietary thing you really want to go.
He was trying to lose weight anyway.
Well, always. But yeah, so now we're kind of following him along. He's been fatigued for the last couple of weeks. Canceled going on a trip to a concert in Tampa because it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
And, he's taking, I'm trying to walk maybe a half a mile a day. And he's barely getting it done.
I couldn't walk to my mailbox.
Yeah. I mean, this was
a real problem.
He's still sick. Okay, and that's the thing. You may have gotten past the really knock you in the dirt kind of sickness.
If you see Russ tomorrow, okay, tell him that there's some blood work he needs to get to see what's going on.
Yes,
I haven't talked to Russ in a good while.
Yeah.
So
anyway, we got a bunch of questions on the social media as well as on the text line. Gonna hang on to the seasonal allergy ones for a second. Tony Fonte says daughter's taste went away after a month. Went away a month after the infection.
It can happen. Yes.
And it's still gone. Any treatment or therapy that can help?
First thing I would do, okay, would be to ask her whether or not she still feels like her sinuses are full.
Yeah.
Okay, because that's an important question. Mm-hmm. So when you end up with COVID, you'll end up coughing garbage out. You'll see stuff coming out of the sinuses. And one of the first things that I ask people to do, or ask them, is do you find yourself coughing in the morning because of postnasal drip? Do you find yourself clearing your sinuses or having to blow your nose? And if the answer is yes, sometimes you can end up with a post-viral sinusitis that will do this. And it's a damn shame to miss this.
Yeah.
So what I would have her do, just shooting from the hip, would be to take something called N-acetylcysteine, or NAC, 3 to 4 times a day. It's 500 milligrams 3 to 4 times a day. And to that, you add guaifenesin, 3 to 4 times a day. You take one of each, breakfast, lunch, dinner, bedtime. What that does is it thins the secretions in the sinuses and allows you to more easily kick them out. Mm-hmm. To that, you take peppermint oil. Just ordinary peppermint oil. You can get it at Publix.
Yeah, it's pretty
It's my favorite place to buy my peppermint oil.
I actually got that little health place.
We actually have it at Stages of Life too. But the little, I had to plug Publix because they make such good sandwiches.
They do make a good sub.
And what you do is you take a little bit of the peppermint oil and put it under your nose or a little bit on your cheeks. And what happens is it stimulates secretion of the fluids from the sinuses so that you can blow them out.
Because I was going to say, I'd do it to the roof of the mouth.
To the roof of the mouth is the best way to do it.
Okay.
All right. But, you can take a drop or two under the nose.
Right. That's like a nasal. Yeah, I got you.
It works just
really
fine.
Does
the fastest way, is to put a drop or two on your thumb and stick it to the roof of the mouth. Okay.
But be careful, not too much.
That's the first thing. The second thing is wash your hands.
Yeah.
Now the problem with COVID, people don't realize it, but where did you get the COVID to begin with? And most people get it from food, not through nasal secretions.
Last week someone asked you to prove your science on that, the gut.
Do
the math.
Do the math. Look at the natural history of coronavirus. If you want to have some fun with it, look up coronavirus, not COVID, but coronavirus. That's the real name here. Mm-hmm. And dogs and cats, coronavirus and cattle. Because you know what?
Been there forever.
They don't wear masks. Where do they get it? They get it from the ground because that's where coronavirus goes. It lives in the gut. And, most of the people that come down with COVID at nursing homes didn't get it because the nurses and assistants came in there and French kissed them. They got it from their food dish.
Food.
So if you want to see 10 to 20% of people, 30% of people in a nursing home get sick, it's because it's in their soup. Mm-hmm. It's in whatever is being handed to them. Same thing on cruise ships and the same thing in airplanes. So, you can wear all the masks you want to on that airplane. If they're going to feed you, you're going to have a problem, which, by the way, is why they're not giving you food during COVID. Mm-hmm. Somebody knows it and you don't.
Somebody knows what's going on. Okay, Liz is watching us on Facebook, I believe. She says, what are your thoughts about mixing the manufacturer's boosters, like Pfizer, 2 shots, and then a J&J booster, or a Moderna booster with 2 Pfizer shots, et cetera, et cetera?
I wouldn't think that's a good idea at all. So for the J&J, you go ahead and you get the Moderna. Just go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
Okay? The Pfizer, you go ahead and you get the third Pfizer shot. The Moderna, you get the third one. Why? Because you know that you tolerated it.
Yeah,
the last thing that you want to do
is
to go ahead and try something different. It doesn't make any sense.
Right.
But what I will encourage you to do is to get a COVID antibody assay. That's how much COVID antibodies floating around. Now, why do I care about this?
Because you're going to get sick
because
as heck if you have too many.
if you have too much antibody on board when you get that booster, it is going to be a bad 24 to 36 hours for you. It's not dangerous, but I'll tell you what, there's no need for you to be unhappy in this life.
No, and it'll knock you in the dirt if you.
It will knock you in the dirt. So I generally recommend my patients get the COVID antibody tests monthly or every 8 weeks in that range. If you get it every 6 to 8 weeks, you can pretty well calculate when it's going to drop down to the 4 level. When it hits 4, that's when you pull the trigger on getting the COVID vaccine. If it's 6 to 8 or higher, you're likely to have a bad day. Now, does that matter? And if you're not willing to go out and get the COVID antibodies, then having a bad day, go on Friday or Saturday to get the vaccine. So that way you have Saturday or Sunday to recover from it and you're back to work on Monday. So when I got mine, I went in on Friday. Why? Because I work Sundays. I work Sunday through Friday. You know, I take Saturdays off. It's the only day I get off. So if I'm going to get sick, that'll be the day. Good for me, right? Yeah.
All right, let's see. Also, what specific lab work post-infection would you ask that we get from our doctors?
Okay, I'd be happy to do it. Okay, one of the first things that you want to do is to get a full thyroid panel, which is going to be an educational process in and of itself. So what do you do? A T3, T4, free T3, free T4, TPA, ATG, TSH, that's a good start, as well as T-up. Now, that's how you evaluate a thyroid. Then you go ahead and you get a DHEA and cortisol level. That's going to help you look at the adrenals. To get the gonads, you're going to check estradiol, progesterone, testosterone, because those are indicators also of how the adrenals are doing, because most of a woman's testosterone actually comes from the adrenals, and if it's too low, the immune system doesn't work. So there are a bunch of things, bunches of pieces of data built in there. PTH, parathormones necessary, luteinizing hormone, follicle stimulating hormone. All these things are going to tell you how the pituitary is doing, because there are people out there that will end up with pituitary hypofunction. That's a thalamic issue, so you need to be able to look at it that way. Insulin levels and blood sugar. Why? Because just because you're feeling like crud doesn't mean that it has anything to do with COVID. So if you have too high of an insulin, it will have a tendency to make you feel pretty badly. So what do people typically do? Now, did I forget about the typical liver panel and the kidney panel? The answer is no, I didn't forget about that. All of that is factored into it. There's about 60 tests that are run. It takes a little bit of effort to convince your doctor to do anything, in case you haven't already figured out. That's assuming you're actually going to see your doctor instead of a mid-level, in which case you might as well just forget it, okay, because this is not something that they're going to find in their protocol manuals.
Then again, the doctor here, Klein that is always accepting new patients. So you might want to look into that.
Yeah, my mid-levels know how to do it.
Good amount of insurance accepted, Medicare. Appreciate
it. We do Medicare, TRICARE, a good number of Cigna. Blue Cross, you're out of luck.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I can't see my own wife with Blue Cross.
I know, right? I know.
You know what I mean? So good thing for her, she knows me well.
All right,
I work it out with her.
That's what he says anyway. By the way, if you want to, tomorrow morning, Stages of Life Medical Institute's open. That you can call them 407-679-3337. Again, tomorrow morning, 407-679-3337.
That's the short route to getting it done, actually. Yeah.
It is. Yes, but you can always apply as a new patient online, too, at stagesoflifemedicalinstitute.com. Wow, the band started.
And then we can send the results to your doctor with recommendations as to what to do.
Of course. So we got a couple of texts we want to take care of. If you want to get on board, you may do so. 23680-23680. That's the text line. And the phone is open. 407-422-1212. One more segment to handle your questions. We got some stuff about seasonal allergies.
Oh, good. I like seasonal allergies.
I hate seasonal allergies.
It's like seasonal fruit. You have to wait for them.
Yeah. But
wait for it.
Wait for it?
Wait for it.
There we go. I'm not waiting anymore. You goof. All right. Hey, Tony, no problem. We appreciate your questions. Really do. It's always good to have people who actually have questions that we want to answer.
Well, they're articulate. You know, I mean, he was very specific.
He's like, I don't want to rattle off. You're not rattling off. You're fine. No. It's good stuff. Okay,
otherwise, we wouldn't answer you at all.
Yeah, I just totally
we would ignore you.
Just like this guy. Yeah. Oh, boy.
Yeah.
So once in a while, it happens. All right. So what are we gonna do? I'm gonna have to go get my Brio. There's just nothing I can do.
Well, actually, let's look around and see. So let's look at Good RX and find out which of those are similar inhalers.
The only other one would be Advair at the end because Good
Well,
RX.
that's what I was looking at.
Yeah, I was going to say, and that's got to be way up like 5,500.
Well, that's fine. We'll get you whatever you need to get.
Okay.
But now, one of the problems that you get into, okay, is that
Burritos
medication hasn't gotten less expensive.
It's gotten more expensive.
Okay, it's gotten more expensive. Wouldn't you know it? Because what's happening is the insurance premiums that you are paying so diligently, okay, are now going to pay for other people's health care that didn't even enter this country legally.
My insurance is re-upping at I think the end of this month starts the enrollment period.
Yeah.
I'm dropping, I'm going without insurance again. It
Yeah.
was ridiculous.
Oh, I didn't have insurance for many years.
It was not worth it.
Yeah, and so for the most part, because their insurance is not paying for the one thing you need from them,
Yes,
which is the
one
medicine.
freaking thing I need, they're like, nope, can't do it.
And the rest of it.
Well, we will do it, but you need to go to this pharmacy and you have to get 3 at once, and it's going to cost $1,500.
Right.
And that's a deal.
Yeah.
You buy it.
Yeah. Now there are a couple things we need to look at if you just don't pull the trigger too fast. Have you looked at the Canadian pharmacies to see what they have?
No, I have not.
You should.
I have looked at Clever RX, Good RX.
They're all the same.
All of them.
The best one, I used to think Clever RX was the better one, but it's actually Good RX.
Good RX is the better one.
Yeah. And so what you do is with Good RX is you go to goodrx.com, put the precise prescription as your doctor wrote it for you. Whether it's 30 days, 90 days,
the milligrams,
could be 110
whatever.
days. It doesn't even matter.
It gives you good options.
It gives you lots and lots of options. And then find out what the cash price is on it. Now, don't you know? Okay, that coupon that you can print is going to be honored at most other pharmacies
You're gonna have
because
to print it now. You just carry.
No, you do want to print it.
Okay, I was going to say, but you
Just
can just
print it. Listen to me. Go on your
listening.
computer at home, print it. The app is pretty useless. Why? Because you can't see all the things you need to see. More so, okay, is that when you pull the thing up on your app, it'll say, "Oh, this is the price at Publix." Okay, well, wouldn't you know? That may not work so well at Walgreens, but if you print the coupon, it does.
And it actually has different prices depending on where you
If
go.
you print the right one, you will get away with the least cost.
Doc now is Good RX. Just check it out.
Yeah, I use it. I mean, why not?
You know,
But you know something? It's cheaper there than it is using a prescription plan.
Yeah, I know. I haven't been able to use my prescription plan at all. My
Yeah.
$5, yeah.
Right.
Welcome back. It is Stages of Life Radio. We're talking about prescription plans, and most of them stink. And we were actually toting
Don't you know?
how good RX actually is.
Yeah.
So if you are looking for prescription discounts, goodrx.com.
Does the job.
It really does.
Yeah, it works. Now, okay, if you're getting sucked into this Medicare silly season, watching the television and looking at all these dried up actors and athletes, right? Yeah, right. So guess what? Look at they're all dried up. They were basically at average individuals before. Now what they're doing is they're taking a nickel to try to make your life more difficult.
Even Broadway Joe.
Broadway Joe. Okay, he's a real healthy looking guy, isn't he?
He's so healthy. They actually run verbatim what he says, printed alongside as he speaks, so that you can clearly make sure. Yeah. That's
So what happens is that these Medicare Disadvantage plans, what they do is they take $3,000 to $4,000 right off the top out of your Medicare premium.
Yeah.
And then start denying you things. Okay, that is the job of the Medicare Disadvantage plans. So for that $3,000 or $4,000, they'll give you about a $400 membership in a gym. They'll give you a $30 pair of eyeglasses and maybe a couple pairs of clean undershorts if you need them.
Those are nice.
Yeah. Okay. In return for that $3,000, and then all of a sudden you start finding that you can go to the hospital, but you don't get all the services that you're going to need because they're not going to get paid what they need to get paid. You can't go to most of the better doctors around because none of them are going to take this, and so you end up having to run all over the place. And half the time when you show up, the doctor's staff say, no, we don't take that anymore because they've already goofed us enough.
Yep.
Yeah, the Medicare Disadvantage plans are not for you.
Yes, so shop around.
So I have Medicare. What do? I have Mutual of Omaha as my secondary.
There you go.
And I have United Healthcare covering my prescription. As long as they are different, you have a different secondary from your prescription plan, they can't involuntarily roll you into a Medicare Advantage plan.
Yay.
So if they come back, the little guy on the telephone, who, by the way, has your best interest in heart, as well as his commission, which is 10%.
Wow.
Okay. So what they will do is they'll give you, it's so much easier for you to write one check per month. You don't write the check anyway. It gets taken out of your account. So if they're different, they can't put you into that high commission product called a Medicare Advantage plan. All right, they make a lot of money, and you get hammered. What do you know about that?
I know a lot about that. I had to talk about it on the Florida Roundtable this week and go, uh-huh.
Yeah, they were hearing about it because
Humana was pushing it.
Oh yeah, no, they're all pushing it. Even the hospitals have their own disadvantage plans.
I only took Humana's call this week because everyone was pestering me. Hey, open enrollment.
Open
enrollment. Sorry, I already got Humana.
It's already open. You have Medicare. As soon as you start feeling pressured, it's called a call to action. You know that somebody is going to be diving for your wallet or your purse or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah.
They are going to make a run on your account because they have including Broadway Joe, they have your best interest at heart. You get those benefits that you deserve.
Oh, please.
I tell you what, when somebody tells me that I deserve something, okay, it's usually a beating that I get afterwards, okay, because you're not going to be getting something that's really good. You don't deserve anything. You earn these things.
Right.
You paid for it, and you ought to be blessed to get what you paid for. But as soon as you start doing these, I'm a victim modes, you're not going to get what you paid for. You're not going to get what you earned, and you're certainly going to get nothing but the tail end of this.
Me,
I have people come in all the time in the office. They go, "Well, I don't understand why you're not taking my insurance anymore." I say, "What do you mean? I've been taking Medicare for the past 40 years." You're the one that decided to go with some stupid salesperson. What's the salesperson's last name? Oh, I don't know. What town do they live in? Oh, I don't know. They're convincing you that they are your friend, and you can talk to me in person.
Yeah. Speaking
Okay,
of which,
you can walk in my door. Can you walk in theirs?
someone wants to know the approximate cost of a new patient blood work.
It depends. Okay, your insurance doesn't cover much. Okay, that's the key. If you take my blood panel and you go to Quest or LabCorp, it's about $3,800. If we do it in-house, it's $490. So we knock off about 80%.
That's pretty good.
I eat it. Why? Because I can. So that's what it costs to have it done. So when you go out to the box labs, it's almost $4,000 to do the full thing. But it's $490, I think, is what we charge.
So there you
go. And that's what it costs us to do it. So it's like, well,
it's at cost.
It is what it is.
But it's worth it in the long run to Doc because then he has the information he actually needs to treat you.
It's kind of like if you have to put tires on your car. You're not going to go get them for what your insurance covers. Because, insurance doesn't cover it.
Not at all.
Well, let's say you need a new refrigerator or a refrigerator repair. I take all of the same insurance as the repair guy does, by the way. Okay, which is very few.
No, hardly. Yeah.
Right. So, so it doesn't cover much, but we cut it. Like a vitamin, let's call it a PSA. So if you get a PSA done at 364 days, okay, you go to one of the other places, it's going to cost you $150 to $200. We do it for $15. Okay.
Wow.
So we are very, very reasonable, and I've stopped making apologies for the fact that we don't do it for free because we can't.
Why?
Why should I?
Why should people expect you to do?
Because people do.
For free.
Because healthcare should be free.
No, it should not.
It's a service like anything else.
No, if you have money, you can get better healthcare, and if you don't, you get what you get. I mean, I'm sorry, but that's kind of the way it's all worked out.
It works. Actually, that's the way it is in every other country. So if you go to Britain, okay, they have two healthcare systems. You go to Germany, they have two healthcare systems. You go to France, Italy, they have two healthcare systems. And in fact, in Canada, they do also. So if you want the one that's owned and run by the state, that's what you get. It's a lot like the VA system, which, by the way, if you're not sick, VA works perfectly.
Yeah,
but if you are sick, you got a problem.
All right, here we go. Seasonal allergies, pollens mostly, from February through April. I use Nasacort during that time. Is it okay to keep taking it, or should I use something else?
Use Nasacort as a last resort. The problem is that when you're using corticosteroids like that, it will suppress the adrenal glands. Your best bet is to use something called quercetin, and with that you take MSM and something called bromelain. That is how you would do it. When you're using nasal-delivered steroids, even if they're over the counter, the amount of cortisol that ends up in your bloodstream is sufficient to shut down ACTH, and it will cause sleep disorders, depression, and a whole bunch of other issues. So is it okay? Not in my life.
No.
Okay, should you use something else? The answer is yes. I just gave them to you.
Do you know that I was put on a Flonase or
it doesn't shock me.
for a daily use, 2 squirts a day? And I was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, that's what they do.
This cannot be right. And I immediately stopped.
It isn't good for you.
I was like, there's
now,
no way.
One little trick you can do, okay, and you use something called Afrin. Metazoline is this stuff. It's very good stuff, but you never use it more than 3 days in a row.
Right,
so you go spray, 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 and then you take a day off. Spray, 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 take a day off. that will work. But again, quercetin, bromelain, good combination, brilliant combination, actually. Okay, NAC, so you can keep the mucous membranes clear and flowing, and that should do it for you.
Oh, right. I hope that helps. And if you didn't, podcast available, or go check out the video, because Doc's really a handsome guy.
Yeah.
And you should do that.
Ask my wife. She knows.
She knows. She married him.
Yeah.
I'm still not sure why. But
I thought
the cheap green
I
over
thought
there.
that I had to, actually.
You did? You didn't.
It turns out that she wasn't.
No, she lied. She tried to
lied.
trap you. It's all right. So anyway, all the information that you need is at your fingertips. StagesOfLifeMedicalInstitute.com. Doc and I are going to be out of here, but we'll be back on Thursday night with Connection Show around 9 o'clock. So
Yes,
look
ma'am.
for us there. Thanks, guys.
You've been listening to Stages of Life Radio with Dr. David Klein. Check out StagesOfLifeMedicalInstitute.com or stop by 1917 Booth Circle in Longwood near the intersection of I-4 and 434. Call 407-679-3337. That's 407-679-3337. Dr. Klein accepts many insurances and Medicare too. Join us next Sunday at 4 p.m. on News Radio WFLA Orlando.